starting things off, let's break down kind of some of the latest updates that we're getting on the recruiting trail at the quarterback spot. It looks like Oregon is really kind of focusing in, honing in, if you will, on two guys right now. Phoenix, Arizona, Sunny Slope quarterback Luke Moga, who has set a commitment for April 28th. And then St. Francis Academy out in Baltimore, Michael Van Buren, who just announced the top three of Oregon, Penn State, and Maryland. He's supposed to commit in early July. Let's kind of just open it up with those guys and maybe kind of get some of your thoughts.
Yeah, so with Luke Moga, I mean, you're getting a extremely fast player. Um, you definitely want that completion percentage up, which is the only real concern, but you are getting a fantastic, potentially great upside player here with Moga. He should definitely finish as a 4-star, I think, on most recruiting sites. And I mean, honestly, his numbers would be even higher if he wasn't at as bad of a team, I guess, saying that in the nicest way possible. Um, so he's got the 6 finalists: BYU, TCU, Miami, SMU, Arizona State, and Oregon. Um, and from what I know right now, it looks like he's going to be a Duck. So next Friday, we'll be getting a new addition potentially to the class. Um, Now, Oregon fans, this is where you kind of want to maybe have a debate here. Do you want the one prep quarterback and one transfer guy, or do you want the two prep guys and then kind of see how it goes? Um, bring in Michael Van Buren, and then you look at in the past. So, like prep guys, you have Ty Thompson still on the roster, right? And then you have other guys that we've seen in the past transfer in, like Anthony Brown has transferred in. We've seen guys also like Bo Nix, obviously. So I think Van Buren, looking at him, it's really kind of a question mark really of what does he want in a program and where does he necessarily want to go? Does he want to stay home or closer to home rather in Penn State or even Maryland for that fact? They're in this top three as well. Or does he want to come out west? He is just coming off of a visit and then he dropped this top three, which was kind of expected to be his top three. And definitely helps Oregon hone down their options at QB. I don't think that they're really going to look anywhere else other than these two right now, unless they absolutely need to. But do you want to share a little bit maybe about Van Buren?
Yeah, sure. I definitely want to hit on a couple of your points because you got into some great discussion that we were looking to build on here. With Moga, I think it's an interesting recruitment because he saw this meteoric rise, and Oregon was kind of really right in the middle of it. And he's coming out of the state of Arizona, which is a state that is really on the rise in terms of producing top tier college football talent. It hasn't necessarily had a super high success rate, at least recently, at the quarterback spot. The most notable example I can think of is Spencer Rattler over at South Carolina, and he obviously took a little bit of time to really settle in. Losing his job to Caleb Williams when he was still over at Oklahoma, but so, I think there is a little bit of risk in terms of, taking a commitment from a guy like Moga. And I don't say that in any kind of a slight or anything. I'm just, trying to be critical here and, share my thoughts. But you can see that the upside with Moga is super clear. He just set, I think, his state school record in the 100, running a 10-7. So you can
Yep.
see that the mobility is amazing. Throwing on the run is great. He's not afraid to run. But as far as Van Buren's concerned, I think that, you and I have kind of been talking a little bit off air about how he might be a little bit more of a refined passer. So it's
Yep.
just really going to be a question of what is it that Will Stein's looking for, that the rest of the offensive staff is looking for. And it's so interesting, Colin, to look at quarterback recruits because unless they're just bona fide studs, like absolute can't miss guys, it's more often than not that they're not going to see the field as freshmen unless you have a Trevor Lawrence situation, Bryce Young type of a deal, and he didn't even start right away, I don't think, because I want to say Mac Jones was still there. So it's not something that's going to happen immediately. You have to plan it out for the future, but I think that Van Buren would be a really good addition for them, especially to do in the DMV area with a couple of different guys. Missed out on Nicholas Harbor this past cycle, but they're really looking to prioritize that area. But I'd be curious to dive a little bit more into some of this the numbers game, right? Like we're talking about with the prep versus portal, and I can throw on some Van Buren highlights as well while we do that.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting thing. I mean, talking about whether you want the one prep and one transfer, or the two prep guys. You look at it and you think that, okay, portal guy is automatically going to be better. That's not always the case for sure. We've seen quarterbacks like Anthony Brown recently, which was a bit of an experiment for sure with Cristobal. And you saw kind of how that unfolded. It didn't really work out. You look at other spots, even at QB still here, Ty Thompson, the prep QB, also from Arizona, I believe Gilbert, Arizona. He hasn't seen the field much yet. And when he has, it was behind Bo Nix this season when he went down in that which game was it? Washington, and then he saw a little bit in the Utah game, I believe, as well. He's also seen a little bit. He saw a little bit the end of the bowl game against Oklahoma when that game was already decided, and it's just really a big question. And it honestly, it does matter about who is actually in the portal at the time, not necessarily predetermining what you want to do now. Um, if you have the staff and you can hold on to that staff, then taking two prep guys definitely is not a bad decision. We saw last year Kenny Dillingham leave to be the head coach at Arizona State after one season here with Oregon. That was really one of the deciding factors for five-star Dante Moore to flip his commitment, another prep guy. And if you can just keep these guys together, I think that developing prep guys will work out pretty well. It's just you want to make sure you aren't predetermining, like I said, and you got to make sure that there is a definite spot for them. Like you don't want them to transfer in, take up a scholarship, and then sit behind a starter. Like for example, you have someone transfer in behind Bo Nix. Well, they're not going to play. You want to make sure that
That's why
they're
DJ, you didn't
actually,
come.
yeah, and that's a big point because I mean, obviously his brother's here, so I don't know what else you want to add on that part.
Yeah, I think with we can kind of have maybe this be like wind down the quarterback discussion a little bit, but I really think that one portal and one prep guy makes the most sense because let's just kind of toss out some hypotheticals, right? Let's say you can add Moga and Van Buren in this class. Fast forward to, fall camp 2024, you're going into that, really hoping and banking on Ty Thompson or Austin Novosad being ready
Yep.
to be your starter, or maybe even one of Moga or Van Buren. But I don't think that either of those guys have had the kind of high school careers or really built themselves up as players that a lot of people in the industry, the industry experts, don't necessarily tab them as day one starter kind of guys. And like we were just saying, that's not common. And I just feel like with Ty Thompson's development, we haven't really seen enough from him, I think, to support the confidence in taking two prep guys. And I think that you can even, obviously the film speaks for itself. And I've said multiple times, he's not put in the best situations. He hasn't had consistent offensive coordinators. Those are challenges, but you got to roll with it. There's nothing he can do about that. But I think the staff bringing in Matt Rush, that fifth year transfer dude, in the spring, may be a little bit telling of where they kind of are at with Ty Thompson in terms of their comfort with him and confidence with him. I'm not saying that they're not confident in him, but what can we draw from these moves? I feel like with college football, a lot of stuff doesn't necessarily get put out there as blatantly as it does in the NFL in terms of media coverage. So sometimes you got to read in between the lines a little bit. I'm not saying that that's the reason that they brought him in, but I'm just throwing out that possibility. So that's kind of my last piece. I feel like one portal, one prep guy by far makes the most sense and is the safest way for them to go.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. Although I do really like the idea of developing them, developing prep guys, that is, there's a very big risk with it. And yeah, I'd have to agree with you there.